The Smoky Hill River begins in eastern Colorado and flows 560 miles nearly across Kansas to the confluence of the Republican River at Junction City, where it becomes the Kansas River. But how did the name originate? From the smoky appearance of morning and evening haze? Was it from a grove of cottonwood trees seen from a distance? Or perhaps it was from fires set by Native Americans to renew the grass? The history of the Smoky Hill River in Salina, Kansas is really a tale of two rivers. Shown in red is the course of the original river in 1858 when settlers arrived. To give you a perspective, here's the new soccer complex. This is Red Fox Lane. Here is Oxbow Park, and this area is Lakewood Park. After enduring numerous destructive floods, the city began building a flood control system in the 1950s. The blue line represents how the river flows today after channelization was completed in 1961. In the early days, the river provided new towns like Salina water power to run saw and grist mills. In 1870, two were predominant here, an upper mill and a lower mill. Here, the upper mill, owned by the Gower brothers, was located south of the present-day Indian Rock Park. The Gowers produce flour with colorful names like the Pride of Salina and Prairie Flour. In 1874, the lower mill, or Western Star Mill, just north of Iron Avenue, increased the height of their dam, causing the water level to rise and affecting the operation of the upper mill. Western Star Mill purchased the lower mill and closed it down. The upper mill location did become a popular place to gather and have picnics. The area is now the site of Bill Burke Park. The river was important not only to the commercial development of the city, but also to its social life. It brought people together for recreation and camaraderie. In 1881, Saline County purchased 45 acres and a bend in the Smoky Hill to develop a site for the county fair. There were many buildings for fair use, a large racetrack, and places for picnics and entertainment. This aerial view of the park 100 years ago also shows the two touring boats that gave people rides, the old Upper Mill site and then back to the Iron Street Landing. The Belle of Salina was a small 16 by 32 foot steamboat that held 50 passengers and had a 7-horsepower engine. It first plied the waters of the Smoky Hill in June of 1876 and continued for several summers thereafter. The Coyote came along around 1819. It was a 37-foot craft that got its name from the Kansas Wesleyan football team. The operator of this pleasure boat was a fellow named Ole Overfelt, who knew every twist of the river and gave his passengers memorable rides. Ole also operated a boat dock that was crouched under the 4th Street footbridge of the west side of Oakdale from 1935 to 1967, where the Salina Journal is now. This popular place rented motorboats and rowboats that went up and down the river for years. Some tell stories of police issuing speeding tickets to motorboat operators. But Oakdale Park wasn't the only site along the river that provided recreation. Swimming in the river was once a favored pastime. This weathered concrete structure with all the limbs is the old hot water dam near the present-day Riverside Park. Water was once drawn out of the river here for the power plant located on North 3rd Street. Hot wastewater was dumped back into the river. Old-timers say it was possible to swim in the warm water even in the wintertime. Once the Pittman Sand Company, Lakewood Park is Salina's largest nature and discovery park. It also serves as a reservoir for overflow water. This plot of land was granted in the 1860s to the widow of Seneca chief Big Fire in the Woods, who served in the War of 1812. The old Lower Mill Dam still exists along Founders Park by the Salina Community Theater. In 1955, the dam and the waterfalls provided the setting for the love scenes between William Holden and Kim Novak in the movie Picnic. One problem in developing a town along the river is how to get from one side to the other and then back again. Settlers and travelers used at Rocky Ford near Riverside Park. When the river rose, however, they crossed on a ferry made of planks from a washed-out military bridge. Alexander and Christina Campbell operated the free ferry where today's Iron Avenue Bridge crosses. This plaque commemorates the location at Founders Park. As the city matured and grew, substantial footbridges and bridges for wagons, buggies, and then for automobiles were built. Pictured is the Mulberry Street entrance to Oakdale Park. This bridge spanned the Smoky in the early 1900s. This is the modern-day Mulberry Street crossing, used daily by park enthusiasts and every year in June by thousands of Smoky Hill River Festival goers. This image from the 1950s shows the west side of Oakdale Park looking north. Notice the old walk bridge with the overfilled boat dock barely showing on the left. This is the same site today looking north. The boat dock is only a memory now, but you can see a new brown walk bridge in the distance. This bridge, now a National Historical Structure, was originally located on North Ohio Street. When Ohio was widened in the 1950s, it was relocated to the south entrance of Lakewood Park. A few years ago, the old bridge was again relocated back on North Ohio and serves as a pedestrian bridge to Lakewood Middle School and for the future Smoky Hill River Trail. A major problem in living next to a river is the danger of perennial flooding. Salina's had its share. From 1903 to 1951, the city experienced 6 major floods. This scene on Iron Street looking east was taken of the 1903 flood. 3 days of heavy rains at the end of May kept all waterways at flood stage for over a week. The 1915 flood damaged the original Claflin Hall built in 1900 in Oakdale Park. During this flood, the Ohio Street Bridge was severely damaged when one bank of the river gave way. The next extensive flood occurred in 1938. In this aerial photo, you'll notice that the Smoky Hill River as it appeared in its original state. If you look close, you can see the old Upper Mill location in the north end of the present-day Bill Burke Park. In early June 1938, muddy waters covered 2 square miles of Salina's east side. Water is backed up here to the downtown area at the corner of Elm and Santa Fe Street looking north. This is that same location today, with the 3 brick buildings on the right still intact. The light poles are gone, but traffic lights have been added. The next major flooding in Salina took place in both September and October of 1941. On September 6th, lightning struck and ignited the second and recently finished Claflin Hall. A lake of fire around the building kept firemen from saving it. As bad as the 1941 floods were, the one that occurred in the summer of 1951 was worse. By June's end, the area had caught more rainfall than it had received in any year previous. On the evening of July 10th, rain began to fall and continued throughout the next day. City officials warned people to expect another flood, and Dry Creek in the west part was rampaging. North Salina wasn't spared either. Floodwater was up to the doors of these buildings. By July 11th, evacuation of Salina residents began in earnest. Every available boat was pressed into service. An estimated 1,800 Salinans left their homes. When floodwaters receded, the destruction became evident. This is the tangled wreckage of the Elm Street Bridge after the onslaught of water and driftwood. This became Salina's most devastating flood. Following the 1951 flood, serious work began on implementing safeguards to prevent further harm to the city. The current flood control system was finished in 1961, and no major flooding from the Smoky Hill River has occurred since. A modern view of the falls and the flood channel with its normal flow on the east side of Indian Rock Park, showing the concrete water intake structure for the city. For years, this system has proved invaluable during wet years like 1993 when flooding again threatened the community. But every change brings new problems to light. Once the flood control was completed, the old section of the river that ran through the center of town no longer functioned as a wild river. This 1890s view looks south from the location of the Iron Street Bridge. This is the same site today. After channelization, the Iron Street Bridge was replaced with a square concrete culvert that restricts the flow of water and collects trash. Today, the dam still serves a purpose as a control feature on the flood control system. The gate in the background can be opened or closed to manipulate the level of water upstream. With the limited flow of water and the lack of occasional flooding to flush the river, the original river channel fills with silt and collects debris. Today, the old channel is basically an open drainage ditch for the surface runoff in the center part of town. Another problem faces us today. It was reported in 1868 that a large herd of buffalo came upon the Smoky Hill River and drank the river dry. Could that really happen? Was it just a tall tale? This photo of the flood channel was taken in 2006. Perhaps a herd of buffalo could not really drink the river dry, but the citizens of Salina can. Salina gets about 50% of its water from the river, with the rest coming from wells. How do we balance the very real need for protecting the city from flooding with the desire to preserve the enhancements to a community that a river contributes? There have been several attempts over the years to revitalize the old river through studies, dredging, and cleanups, but none have been long-term solutions. Recently, a new group of Salina citizens have formed to create long-term solutions to the problem. The Friends of the River have hired a firm to help determine goals to make the old river channel something in which Salina can take pride.